What's up, Carla?
What's up, Chris? How are you?
I'm good. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you.
I don't want to say our conversation today isn't exciting. It definitely will be. But you and I are getting ready to hop on planes tomorrow and head to Austin,
Yes,
which
yes.
is kind of exciting, also nerve-wracking, right? Traveling again.
In what Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, I've been on two trips, in the last few weeks.
It's
So
true.
at this point, I'm like, let's go.
Well, I've been following the South by Southwest hashtag on Twitter this morning.
Okay.
There is kind of this sense of like people excited to be back again, but it's also kind of the other side of that coin is like nothing has happened in the last 2 years. It actually has happened, right? There's a pandemic, people gathering in like large spaces.
Yes.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yes.
But I'll just give a
I
heads
will.
up to folks that I think our next two episodes, one live from Austin and one probably next week we'll have like a tape delayed one. Obviously, we won't be in
Mhm.
Austin anymore, but we've got some good guests coming up.
Yes. I mean, I'm just excited in general. It's my first South by Southwest EDU
Mhm.
ever, so I can't wait to check it out. And leadership journeys. That's really exciting. So.
Right. Wednesday night we will be doing. I think it'll be our fourth leadership journeys.
Yes, I'm losing count at this point.
Yeah, and we're going to be doing a fifth right around the corner, in San Diego. It'll be our second time doing it at ASU GSV.
Yes.
All right.
Super, super stoked.
Well, okay, so I'm excited to introduce today's guest. He's I feel like a radio longtime fan, first time guest of the Big Picture Cup of Joy Cafe. But truly, our guest has been a friend of Big Picture for many years now. So I want to introduce our friend Ted Dintersmith. Ted, how are you?
Hey, I'm fine. I'm reciprocally a longtime fan of you guys, so I'm glad to be here.
Ted, it's funny. Carla and I were just talking about South by EDU. I feel like since I've known you, you seem a little bit ahead of like the trend. Like what do we need to address next in education? And that comes from your documentary and from your book with Tony, which we can dive into. But I'm curious if you were to predict, what are the things we need to be paying attention to in education? Like, what are the folks in Austin? What should they be talking about this week?
I think the opportunity, but also the huge challenge is as more and more adults take an intense interest in school, to focus that energy and passion on what really matters and to get past banning books or doing a witch hunt for teacher assignments. And we're at an inflection point. If those types of focal points rule the day, I think the consequences of all this energy could be devastating. But I think we can, and we work hard. You guys are an inspiring model, but work hard to showcase schools and school environments that actually prepare kids to be purposeful adults and good citizens and create their own career paths. And so that to me is a far more inspiring thing to direct parents and adults in a community's attention on. But we need to make sure we do that instead of letting ourselves get distracted and dragged down by a set of adults patrolling libraries for books gathering dust.
Yeah. One of the ways that you've highlighted us and we appreciate it is through the book that you wrote with Tony Wagner, What School Could Be, followed by the website Innovators Playlist, and then followed by, I think you all have a podcast that you're working on. I'd love to hear, like, as much as I'd love to use this space to brag about Big Picture, like, what are some of the other successful school models that you all highlighted in What School Could Be, the book?
Yeah. Well, actually, there are two books. One I did write with Tony, which was Most Likely to Succeed, and then
That's
What
right.
School Could Be was based. That's one I wrote. That was based on going to all 50 states in a single school year and visiting a couple hundred schools, and just celebrating and showcasing examples where kids can't wait to be in school, where when you interview them, they have a sense of purpose and know what they're talking about, and where teachers feel trusted to teach to their passion and expertise. And my goal with that book was to communicate that this isn't something we need to go to Singapore or Finland to figure out. There are great examples in every community across the country. It's just that they still remain kind of in nooks and crannies instead of the main experience most kids have in school today, which, I mean, unfortunately, largely schools are assigned to take on material they have no interest in. There's no evidence they actually retain. And when you look hard at it, it's very unlikely they'll ever use as an adult.
I received an email from you about a month ago. You and Tony were trying to get guests for this your podcast, and a tribute to you. Like you have access, Ted, to like a lot of big names out there, but you were like, we want students, like we want parents. Like who are some of the folks that you're already thinking about lining up for this discussion if you haven't already started them?
Well, we're still, and I'd underscore, exploring this and not committed to it. And as you know, it's easy to do. I started with a documentary, right? It's easy to do a mediocre documentary. It's really hard to do a great documentary. And I feel lucky that I came across an amazing director. I do think most likely to succeed is the signature film about the future of education and reach a standard that I'm skeptical any other documentary about education will ever reach. And I've had similar aspirations for the book I wrote with Tony, the book I wrote by myself, for our What School Could Be community organization, which I'm happy to talk about. And I think that's the way I'm thinking about a potential podcast, but it's not easy. And getting, one of the issues we're running into is that kind of pursuant to what we talked about a couple minutes ago, finding school board members or educators or parents willing to be really open in a public forum about their concerns in school. We've gone from school communities that engaged in thoughtful debate to school communities that will often put somebody's details of their personal life on social media, where they live, their cell phone number, their kids' cell phone numbers, and vilify them. That's chilling. And I think it's slowing us down, let's just say, in terms of getting the right powerful voices.
So you mentioned most likely to succeed, which in part highlights High Tech High in San Diego. Viewers may not know, but you and Carla just met. Carla's a graduate of another fantastic school in San Diego, the San Diego Met, the Big Picture Network. Carla, do you is any of this resonating with you as an alumni and now like a colleague in the Big Picture world?
Yeah, I mean, totally. I think that when it comes to having folks, students, young people kind of like be the authors of their own education, I think that's more of a fulfilling experience than just kind of going through classes that are naturally chosen by someone else. But also the idea of having community through educators and through adults that connect with students in a way that is beyond, I think, like classroom material, leaves a lasting impact, which is true in my case, still connecting with my advisor at my high school and some of the students that I went to school with is really, really touching. So
I remember probably like 6 months into the pandemic, everyone in the space that we all work in was like, well, how do we make sure we come out of this having learned and applied lessons? Like how can an education change given the situation we found ourselves in? Ted, I know you've been doing some thinking about this. Like, are people learning lessons of the pandemic? Are they missing some? If we are truly emerging, we can debate that. How should we emerge?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that the education force is exhausted. I mean, this has been an incredibly challenging 24 months. And so I liken it to mile 23 of the marathon. And when you start to say, what are some other runners you've seen that are doing a really great job of running the race? It's like understandable to say, I just want to get to the end. Like I don't have time to think about other runners, but when I talk to educators in the field and we start to have a discussion about which kids continue to learn versus which kids didn't, it was the kids in environments like what you find in your guys' schools, kids that were trusted to pick what they were interested in instead of told what they had to learn, kids that were connecting their learning to real world challenges and opportunities where they were drawing on intrinsic motivation instead of being on the other side of a Zoom lecture or in person, and I think it's that opportunity to understand the tremendous upside if we encourage kids to have a voice in their learning, ensure that the learning has a real world connection that makes it meaningful to the kid, and use those learning experiences to help them actually develop career and citizenship skills. That's not a 1.3% upside on a standardized test score. That's life-altering upside. And if we can get that right, which I'd love to see us do, we're going to have millions of kids off to the races. And if we go through this school year, get to that marathon finish line, and then come next fall, say, wow, thank goodness we can just get back to normal. And normal is, memorizing a bunch of fact-based stuff you're never going to use in life, or drilling on low-level procedures your phone does instantly and perfectly. If that's normal, no, that's not a great thing that we're back to normal. That's back to a failed model that's ill-preparing kids and leaving, I think, all kids behind, irrespective of their GPA and irrespective of their zip code.
Just by way of go ahead, Carla.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I think similar to what you mentioned earlier, Ted, about how this work is exhausting, especially these last 24 months. I think when we return to like whatever normal is, or just return right at a capacity where it was previous to COVID, it's how do we take care of our teachers and our educators and our staff and administration? Because in a way, COVID kind of like shed a light to this work is hard and you're being underpaid. And like, yeah, I think that's my heart goes to obviously the young people, but also being a teacher, having been a teacher before, I'm like, I cannot believe, or I cannot, folks are tired. So what do we do when we go back? But
yeah, and it was interesting to watch the trajectory. I think for the first few months of the pandemic, people celebrated teachers, viewed them as heroes, understood how essential they were to the functioning of our communities and the future of kids. And I think that it's just, things have dragged on. And so we've seen some of that, I think, quite realistic perspective on the value of teachers shift into kind of collective grumpiness. And so I'm hopeful we can get the grumpiness in the rearview mirror and start to really support teachers to do what they entered the profession to do, which is to engage and inspire young kids, help them find their own creative career path forward, help them become productive, informed citizens. And shame on us if we don't come to the support of our teachers to help them accomplish that mission. Maybe
a fresh start. Ted, I'm not trying to be cheeky. You had mentioned this hashtag before we started, but what does this mean to you?
Well, I spend a lot of time, maybe even an obsessive amount of time, on how systems change. And I think if you look at what school could be, that reflects in part my background as a venture capitalist, where in the world of venture capital, nobody is telling every entrepreneur what they have to do. You engage with people on what their dreams are and support them to reach their dreams and aspirations. That, I think, defines the nature, the core essence of the work we do. But also in terms of change, is that over and over again, when people look at what prompts or what leads to real changes in behavior, it's so much easier to get people to think about change in the context of a fresh start, New Year's resolutions, a milestone birthday, or the start of a new school year. And so we're organizing efforts to try to encourage schools all across the country, for whatever their first day of school is, start making headway now. This is the time to rethink the priorities, the metrics, the skills and competencies we want our kids to develop through these precious years of school.
This has been great. Thank you, Ted, for joining us today. I don't know what else to say, but we really appreciate your allyship and you're willing to engage in conversations like these. So really, really glad you joined us today.
Yeah, no, I'm thrilled to be here. And good luck to all of you at South by Southwest. I mentioned before, it always holds a special but a particularly sad spot in my heart, because in 2020, Sir Ken Robinson and I were announcing our combined work on education. And I think everybody knows that was a tragic year for Ken, for Ken's family, but also for the world of education. So
for sure. All right. Until next time, and we run into each other in person. Thanks, Ted.
Terrific. Thanks for what you're doing.
All right. All right, Carla. So we'll see each other tomorrow.
Yes.
In Austin.
We will. I'm excited. I'm ready.
Me too. And we'll see the viewers of this show Thursday morning. So until then,
make it a great day or not.
Make it a great day. Just make it a great day. That's all you should do. You should only make it a great day.
Yes.
Right. All right.
Bye.
Bye.